This one about the push to get those emergency gates installed on more of our expressways. We've reported how they're in use on busy roadways like the Thruway, the 219, the 400, the Skyway, and others. But the 33 and the 198 in the city of Buffalo are not included. The gates aren't up there. Some Common Council members have asked the state to install them on those stretches as well. Local State Senator Tim Kennedy asked the State Department of Transportation Commissioner about that possibility.
Want to see what your thoughts are on adding those gates to the 33 in Kensington and other roadways as well.
As you noted, Senator, we have definitely installed gates on various portions of the state highway system in and around Buffalo. The 33 and the 198 are a little bit more challenging, I'll say, because they're part of a very intricate local road network, but we'd like to, the city has definitely raised the issue. I know the city council has asked directly for that, so we look forward to working with the city to see what the opportunities are there. As you know, there's hospitals in and around that area, so I think we have to have a very thoughtful review about how do we actually, because I understand exactly what the concerns are.
So you're open to the additional?
Oh, absolutely.
Gate,
well,
right.
I'm open to having to make sure that we look at it and see what the possible solutions could be.
Buffalo Common Council member Rasheed Wyatt joins us now live. He represents the University District and has been among those calling for more gates. Councilman, I know it's been a busy day for you guys. I'm going to ask you about what else you did in council today in a moment, but I just want to start there with your reaction to the exchange that we heard. It wasn't a firm commitment saying, yes, we're going to install the gates. It sounds like it's a little more nuanced than that. What did you make of it?
Yeah, but Michael, I'm glad they're having a conversation because at the end of the day, that's what we wanted to provoke the conversation. And the DOT are the experts, and that's what I was asking. We want the experts to give us the analysis of what their thoughts are, because we want to make sure that the next time we have an incident that people are safe. So I'm fine with the DOT making a recommendation. I'm using their engineers and their expertise to make a good decision to keep the public safe.
If the end result here is that more of these emergency gates should be added on the 33, for instance, have you and your colleagues thought about one of the concerns that she brought up, dealing specifically there with having so many hospitals right off the 33 and trying to get, EMTs, to and from the hospital and to people in need, or any of the other concerns that may be the reasoning why those gates aren't already installed on the 33?
Yeah, I mean, after hearing the conversation, it's something that definitely came into my mind. But at the end of the day, Michael, in that situation regarding the blizzard, those vehicles should not have been on the 33. And so it depends on the circumstance, because during that storm, I don't think those vehicles should have been on a 33 and no other vehicle because they just got stuck in a deep hole. So again, I look forward to hearing from the commissioner, and thanks Senator Kennedy for his support of this, to see what we can do, because I think it's definitely a smart move to have the conversation, to put some arms up, but I'll wait for the state to get back to us to get us their rationale and their explanation for if we should or if we shouldn't, and why, if that's the situation. It seemed as though they were hopeful to do something, maybe not to the extent that every entrance is blocked, but certainly there's a number of entrances that should be blocked so that, or open so that possibly vehicles can get to the hospital possibly.
So more to come on that. We also reported last half hour that today you and the rest of the council improved adding 2 new positions here in Buffalo in the aftermath of the blizzard. A fleet manager like the mayor wanted, and also an emergency management director like many on the council wanted. It seems like this was a bit of a compromise. I'm sure there are people watching who wonder why one person couldn't do these 2 jobs. I know that was floated out there as well. Is adding these 2 new positions with these large salaries a good use of taxpayer money in your mind?
Absolutely. I mean, especially after what we've gone through last year, what we experienced yesterday with a earthquake. This is the new world that we're living in, and we need people who are preparing the citizens and preparing government for these eventualities, because it's not about if, it's when it happens. And so I think this is probably one of the best dollars spent as far as personnel in the city because, I referred to 9/11 22 years ago. It's something that happened out of the blue. But when we think about climate change and all those effects of it, this could happen tomorrow. Anything can happen, even as far as, domestic terrorism. So we really need someone who is focused on that and looking at a response, looking at how we prepare our citizenry, looking at how we gather data. One of the issues regarding the blizzard is how do you capture the data from FEMA to get reimbursements and things. So there's a lot of pieces to this that many of us probably don't pay attention to or look into. But I think today the council put forth an agenda or a request and a satisfied request that we have someone who can now start doing the heavy lifting once we get them in place, and someone that's going to look at our fleet of vehicles and making certain that we have the right vehicles for snow. Many of our vehicles got stuck in the snow.
Yeah.
And so these are things that we as council members, because of the blizzard, are thinking of, and I think is also opened the eyes to the state and other areas that need to start looking at these things as well.
Finally, Councilman, I've got less than 30 seconds here, but looking ahead, what else is in store for us in terms of the council's assessment of the blizzard response, and what else needs to change?
I think having more dialogue with the community. I think we've said this a number of times. We've gotten some great ideas from residents. People have emailed us, and I want to further that dialogue because, again, I think we have people who have lived through it, who've seen it up close and personal, and there's things that we can put in place. I think that even our legislator, our chairwoman, April Baskins, she had an emergency response event that gave people these supplies. It's a different way of thinking, and I think that's good that we start to have these conversations for us to start thinking in the way that we can save our lives and protect our seniors and children.
We've been talking with Buffalo Common Council member Rasheed Wyatt, who represents the University District. Thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Michael.